Sorry about that. Just to continue where we were. Reasons why visual arguments are not legitimate. Just to wrap this up, basically they can be legitimate. They can be legitimate assuming that the context is understood. Essentially time and place, and they can be used specifically and probably most effectively to support arguments. In certain cases, I can see that you could have a visual argument that is complete. It's a possibility. That being said, I would imagine the vast amount of visual arguments, what we consider visual arguments, to be visual evidence, supporting a different argument, or at least in support of a verbal argument. So just to tiptoe around that, basically, it's possible, but you would need to know the context. You would need to know a lot of information that maybe you could only get through words to truly understand the argument itself. But that being said, a no smoking sign I think was a great example of a visual argument, which is kind of self-contained. At this point we know what smoking is. There's a big red X through it, so don't smoke. So that's a good example of self-contained visual argument. So they can be legitimate, but there needs to be, all the context needs to be understood. So I hope that satisfies the answer, and I hope we get a good grade on that question. Let's move on to enthymemes. Number 4, enthymemes. I'm going to be choosing option 1 once again. So first off, I'm supposed to define an enthymeme. I would say that an enthymeme is a argument which is in syllogistic form, but it's incomplete categorical syllogism. It's necessary for the audience to know in their head one of the premises of the syllogism for it to be incomplete but still be effective. When the audience does know or have something held in the mind, have one premise held in the mind, then a syllogism can be very effective. I think we kind of discussed in class a little bit how the vast majority of arguments in popular culture realistically could fall under an enthymeme category, and I think the big statement that I really liked from our PowerPoints was any or most statements that use the word because often are enthymemes, and so because of that, I think that it is very relevant, which is an enthymeme. Some disadvantages of using enthymemes, I could list off a few. The first and foremost is not everybody is going to know what you're talking about. The second, audience members do not hold in the mind a premise of your argument. Then the enthymeme logically does not flow and does not essentially make sense. There's no backing, there's no support, because you're missing premise. Because of the missing element of the syllogism, you essentially have unlinked arguments. So when you have no linkage, there is no connection, or you can start getting into words like valid, or no, it's not a quality argument because it's not directly warranted. And so because of that lack of warrant, there is no, or linkage, it's ineffective and it's not a good argument. But again, another disadvantage of this would be another disadvantage of that would be, I don't know, it could be making our society dumber, to be honest with you. If everyone only expects, if everyone uses their thoughts as a premise for arguments in politics or in public debate, it takes a lot of burden off of our public officials, because they rely on us knowing or having inherent knowledge of what they're talking about. So in any case, in any type of really complicated case, there's going to have to be total explanation. That's the answer. So just to finish, sorry I'm going to take all your time. No, I'm not done yet. Sorry. Do you need to get in here? You can get in here. It's okay. Yeah, come on in. So finally, say hi, Rosie. Hi, Rosie. All right. So finally, I believe that enthymemes can be legitimate. A lot of times, we all have a lot of common beliefs, a lot of common shared values. So, a lot of times we can understand enthymemes, and they are effective, and they are much more casual. We use those every day. So, it's important to understand that I believe that they are legitimate. They can be legitimate, but they need to be used sparingly in especially very complicated situations where maybe everybody doesn't know. A lot of times in politics, for instance, when we're talking about very scientific-based problems like climate change, for instance, there should be no inherently held belief in our heads. We are going to need to be explained everything because there's two polarized sides fighting for each side. So there is no inherent truth in our head. If we want to talk about death and how everybody dies, everybody will agree that everyone will die. So we can maybe make a couple enthymemes based on the premise that everyone will die. But that's a very common sense belief, or it's understood truth. So in those types of cases, enthymemes are effective, but when we really get complicated, you're going to have to do a little more work, and so that's when they would be considered not legitimate. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry I've taken up all your time. I hope you enjoyed my test, and I'm going to try to submit it now. Thank you.